The twin suns of Zerth hung low in the sky as the Earth shuttle descended on the silver platform. Soldiers stood into neat lines on both sides, armor gleaming under the pale blue light. Flags of Earth and Zerth flapped side by side. It was a historic day, a day of peace between two species that had once been bitter enemies. Among the guards stepping out of the ship was a young man named Mark. He wore the standard black uniform of the Earth Peace Corps. His short brown hair, calm face, and sharp eyes made him look older than his age. He didn't speak much, but when he did, others listened. He wasn't the leader, but there was something about him steady, clear, and unshaken. This was Mark's first mission off Earth. His task was simple: protect the ambassador during the peace talks, and follow orders. He had trained for years for this, but what he didn't know was that his face's very presence was about to shake the heart of Zerth's most powerful being. The royal palace of Zerth was made of crystal and silver stone. Inside the grand hall, alien nobles, advisors, and soldiers waited as the queen prepared to greet her guests. Queen Villari, ruler of Zerth, stood at the front, tall and graceful. Her violet skin shimmered under the ceiling lights, and her long robes trailed behind her. Her eyes, silver with a hint of gold, looked over her people with calm power. She had ruled for 20 years, ever since the war with Earth ended. Though Zerth had survived, the scars ran deep. Her heart had grown cold since that time. She trusted few, and the one she had once trusted the most, Thalen, had betrayed her. The doors to the hall opened. The human delegation entered. The Earth ambassador walked confidently in front, followed by a small group of guards. Zerth's musicians played a soft welcome tune. Alien advisors bowed slightly. The queen lifted her chin to greet them. Then she saw him, her hand frozen. Mid-air, her eyes locked onto one of the human guards, Mark. The music seemed to fade in her ears. The voices around her became distant. All she saw was that face, the same sharp jaw, the same dark eyebrows, the same way he held his hands behind his back, straight and quiet, the same steady walk. He looked exactly like Thalen for a moment. Villari couldn't breathe. Memories came rushing back. Thalen's soft voice, his lies, his betrayal, the pain, the shame, the loss of her people. And now, here stood someone who could be his mirror. Villari's voice came out sharper than she intended. Stop the welcome and this meeting. Now, gasps echoed round the room. The music stopped. The guards stepped back. The ambassador blinked, unsure of what had gone wrong. Villari turned without another word and walked away, her long cloak dragging behind her. Her advisors followed her, whispering to one another in confusion. Mark stood still, trying to understand what had just happened. He had seen the queen's reaction. Her eyes had locked onto him, and something deep and strange had passed between them. But why? The ambassador turned to the guards and gave a quiet order. Stay sharp. Something's wrong. Mark, don't go anywhere. I understand, Mark replied softly. That night, back at the guest quarters, Mark sat alone in his room. The building was made of smooth glass and humming walls. Outside his window, blue plants swayed in the wind. The moons of Zerth rose slowly, casting shadows across the alien city. He had seen war before, not in real battle, but in training sims and history reports. He knew Queen Villari had suffered greatly during the last war, but he didn't know why she had reacted like that to him. He looked in the mirror. His own face stared back, ordinary. He thought, so why had the queen looked at him like she'd seen a ghost? Just then, someone knocked on his door. It was one of the Zerth palace guards. She had deep green skin and wide, yellow eyes. Her voice was soft and careful. You must be careful. Human. The queen believes you look like someone from her past. Mark's brow furrowed. Who? I cannot say, but it is not a name we speak lightly. If she fears you, you are in danger. I haven't done anything, perhaps, but your face has. Before he could ask more, the guard slipped away into the night, her steps silent. Mark sat back down, the warning heavy in his mind. Far across the palace, Queen Villari sat in her private chamber, surrounded by glowing lights and silent guards. Her fingers traced the edges of an old photo, one she hadn't looked at in years. It was Thalon, the man she had once loved, the man who had betrayed her in the worst way. She stared at the image, then closed her eyes. Why does this human look like you? The stars above Zerth glowed bright that night, but inside the royal palace, darkness lingered in Queen Vellari's thoughts. She stood alone in her private room, holding the old picture once again. It was small and faded, but the face was still clear. Thalon, the man who once stood beside her not only as a leader during the war, but as her husband. She had loved him once. He was charming, wise, and strong. But his love had been a lie. He had betrayed her, shared secrets with enemies, and vanished without a trace. His betrayal nearly led to Zerth's fall. Since then, Vellari had ruled with control and distance. She trusted no one, not even her own heart. But now that human Mark had appeared, he didn't just look like Thalon. He moved like him. He stood like him. Even the way he watched the room reminded her of moments from long ago. It couldn't be a trick. She had Thalon's body burned after the betrayal, or so she was told. Was it possible he lived, or worse, had the humans created a copy? She sent for her top advisor, Duran, a tall, silver-skinned alien with wise eyes. He entered quietly and bowed. "You saw him," she said, still looking at the photo. "Yes, Your Grace, I saw the human." "Did you notice his face?" Duran nodded. "It is hard not to. He looks like Thalon." Duran hesitated, then spoke with care. "Yes, but he cannot be. That man is young. Thalon would be over 60 now, if alive, and yet," Vellari whispered, "he feels the same." Duran waited. "Find out who he is," she ordered. "Where he's from. His records, everything." At once, as Duran left, Vellari sat down. She knew she couldn't avoid this. If Mark was connected to Thalon in any way, the truth had to come out. Across the palace, Mark walked through the guests' quarters in silence. Other guards slept or chatted. But he couldn't rest. The warning from the Zerth soldier echoed in his mind. "The Queen believes you look like someone from her past. If she fears you, you are in danger." He didn't understand any of it. Why would his face scare the most powerful woman on this planet? He looked at his reflection again in a tall crystal mirror. Was there something strange about his face? Something hidden in his eyes? No, it was just a normal face. His face, or was it? Mark had grown up in a human colony on New Terra 3, raised in a military orphanage. He was told his parents had died in an accident when he was a baby. He never questioned it. Many kids there had no families. That's just how life was. But now, he wasn't sure. The next morning, he received orders to report to the Queen's chamber. Alone, his commanding officer raised an eyebrow. "That's unusual. Be careful." Mark nodded, but he had already prepared himself for this moment. Queen Vellari sat on a throne made of woven crystal. Her robes shimmered softly as Mark entered and bowed. "You asked for me, Your Grace," he said, voice steady. "Yes, guard Mark," she said calmly, though her eyes studied every inch of his face. "Do you know why you are here?" she asked. "No, Your Grace." Vellari stood and walked slowly around him, quiet. "You look exactly like someone I knew. Someone important. Someone dangerous." Mark turned slightly. Confused. "May I ask who?" She stopped in front of him. His name was Thalon. Mark had never heard the name. "I don't know him," he said carefully. Vellari tilted her head. "You wouldn't, if you truly are who you say you are." "I was born on New Terra 3, orphan young. I've been in service since I was 16. She nodded slowly, but her eyes were sharp. "Would you allow a scan of your memory and DNA?" Mark hesitated. "I don't understand. I want to know who you truly are, Mark," she said, voice softer now. "If you are a soldier or something else," Mark could have refused, but instead he gave a small nod. "If that brings peace between our people, then yes." Back in her lab chamber, Vellari watched as her scientists took a sample from Mark and began a background scan. While they worked, she reviewed files from Earth's military. Duran had already gathered data on Mark's early life, Something was missing. There were no images of Mark before age 4. His adoption file had gaps. Medical records began only after his arrival at the orphanage. That wasn't normal. The lead scientist returned with early results. His DNA is human, as expected. But there is a strange match. Villari's breath slowed. Go on. We compared it with samples from the past. His DNA matches Thalen's, 94%. The Queen sat back in silence. He wasn't Thalen, but he was made from him. Later that evening, Mark walked alone in the outer gardens. The alien plants glowed softly. Blue leaves swayed with warm winds. He found peace in the quiet, though the weight in his chest grew heavier. He remembered flashes of childhood visions of light, rooms filled with humming machines, voices he didn't understand. Were those real or planted? Who was he? Was he made from someone else? Suddenly, soft footsteps sounded behind him. It was Queen Villari. She walked toward him, hands behind her back. You are not him, she said gently. Mark looked at her. But I was made from him, wasn't I? Yes. Why? She looked up at the stars. I don't know yet, but Thalen, before he disappeared, he spoke often about peace. He said he wanted to make something better than himself. Mark looked away. I've never known war. I've only trained to stop it. Villari turned to him. Then maybe you are not a weapon, but a chance. They stood in silence as the moons rose above them, somewhere deep in both their hearts. Questions burned, but for the first time, they both knew one thing. This was only the beginning. The days had passed since Queen Villari learned the truth about Mark. He wasn't Thalen, but a clone made from the man she once loved and hated. Even though Mark had no memories of Thalen, his face, voice, and presence stirred feelings in Villari she had buried long ago. She stood at her window, looking over the glowing city of Zerth. Tall towers shimmered under the evening sky. Flying ships moved silently between buildings. But inside her heart, a storm was growing. Was Mark sent here as a trap, or was he innocent, as he claimed? Was he created by Thalen himself, to finish what he could not? She had to know more. That evening, she sent a message to the human quarters. It was short and simple. Guard Mark is invited to a private dinner with Queen Villari. Formal were required. No weapons. Mark read the message twice. A private dinner with the Queen? That was not normal, not for a guard. Something was happening, something deeper than diplomacy. His commanding officer raised a brow. This is not a request you can ignore. I wasn't planning to, Mark replied, voice calm. He dressed in formal Earth uniform, clean black jacket, silver stripes, no weapons. As he walked through the glowing halls of the palace, many Zerth guards stared at him. Some whispered, some frowned. Mark kept walking, eyes ahead. A servant led him into a quiet room. The ceiling was made of soft blue light, and plants from the Queen's garden hung in silver bowls along the walls. At the center was a crystal table, and at the far end sat Queen Villari. She stood as he entered, her robe flowing like water. Thank you for coming, Mark, she said softly. He bowed. Thank you for the invitation, Your Grace. They sat, and silent servants brought in glowing dishes alien fruits, steaming drinks, and small blue stones that turned into warm bread when touched. Mark looked at the food, unsure, but took a polite bite. Villari watched him. You are calm for someone who has been told they were cloned. Mark wiped his mouth gently. I've been trained to stay calm, no matter the situation. But inside, I have many questions. So do I, she said, folding her hands. She looked into his eyes. You know nothing of Thalen. That is clear to me now. But still, I need to be sure. So I will ask. I will answer as honestly as I can, she nodded. When you sleep, do you see things you don't understand? Mark paused. Yes. Sometimes I see strange machines, faces I don't know, bright lights, and words I don't remember learning. Villari leaned forward slightly. Do you ever feel like your thoughts are not completely yours? Mark took a breath. Sometimes, I wonder if a part of me is missing, like a book with torn pages. Villari was quiet for a long moment. Thalen once told me, if he ever failed, he would create someone better than himself. Someone without his anger, without his lies. Mark's eyes met hers. "Do you think that's me? I don't know yet," she replied, voice low. "But I want to believe it." They continued to eat, though the food hardly mattered. The real meal was in the conversation. Valari asked about his training, his early memories, the people who raised him. Mark answered all, though some of his memories were blurry. After dinner, they walked slowly through her private garden. The trees gave off soft light. Insects buzzed in the air like stars. Mark looked around with quiet wonder. "I never thought I'd walk through a royal garden on another world," he said. Valari smiled for the first time that night. "And I never thought I'd be walking with the shadow of Fallon again." Mark stopped. "I'm not him." "I know," she said gently. "But a shadow can still carry warmth or danger." Suddenly, a sound came from behind the trees fast. Footsteps. 3 Zerth guards rushed in, weapons drawn. Their leader, a tall man with deep red armor, raised his arm. "Your Grace, step away from him." Valari raised a hand. "What is the meaning of this?" The soldier spoke firmly. "We received word from Counselor Tarev. He believes this human is a threat, that he was sent to harm you." Mark stayed still, his hands open. "I am unarmed." The soldier didn't lower his weapon. "Your face is enough to start a war." Valari stepped between them. "He is under my protection." "With respect, Your Grace," the soldier said. "We do not trust this clone." Mark's eyes narrowed. "I'm not here to harm anyone." "Maybe you don't know it," the guard replied. "But maybe you were made for it." Valari's voice rose. "Enough." All fell silent. "This human may carry the face of my past," she said, "but he carries none of its actions. Until proven otherwise, he will be treated with respect." The soldiers lowered their weapons, but their eyes still burned with suspicion. Valari turned to Mark. "Come, I will escort you back myself." As they walked back, Mark spoke quietly. "That's not the last time they'll question me." "No," Valari agreed. "But now I've seen how you act under pressure. You remain calm, even when blamed." Mark looked ahead. "Because deep inside, I know who I am." Valari gave him a look. "And who is that?" "I'm not Fallon," he said. "I'm not anyone's shadow. I'm Mark. I want peace. Not because someone told me to, but because I believe in it." She nodded slowly. "Then maybe this peace mission still has a chance." They reached his quarters. Before leaving, Valari looked at him once more. "You remind me of the man I once loved," she said. "But you also remind me of the man I wished he had been." And then she was gone, leaving Mark standing alone, confused, heavy with thought, but more certain than ever of one thing. He had a purpose here, and it was bigger than anything he had imagined. The morning air in Zerth's capital was cool and silent. From his room in the guest quarters, Mark looked out over the alien city. He had barely slept. His thoughts were full of questions about his past, the Queen, and most of all, Fallon. If he had truly been made from that man, who had done it, why, and for what purpose? He had no memories of being created. His first real memory was at the orphanage on New Terra 3 when he was just a child. But now, those memories felt like paper to light, to clean. Something was missing. He knew he had to find out the truth. Later that day, Mark asked for a private meeting with the human ambassador, Mr. Grayson, a tall and calm man who had worked for Earth's Peace Council for over 30 years. Grayson sat in his office, sipping tea. "You're early," he said as Mark entered. "I need your help," Mark said. Grayson raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "I want access to Earth's old war files, especially anything about a man named Fallon. He was close to Queen Valari. He vanished during the final year of the war." Grayson sat back. "Why are you asking about him?" Mark took a deep breath. "Because I look like him? Almost exactly." Grayson blinked, then placed his cup down. "So it's true," he said quietly. "I heard rumors that the Queen froze when she saw you." "She did, and now I know why. I'm not just a soldier. I think I was made." Grayson leaned forward. "This is dangerous, Mark, if what you say is true. There could be people on both sides who don't want that truth to come out. I need to know. Please." Grayson studied him for a long time, then nodded. All right, I'll give you access. But be careful what you find. Sometimes the past is more dangerous than the future. Hours later, Mark sat alone in a secure room with a glowing screen in front of him. Thousands of files filled the screen: battle logs, images, secret reports. He typed in the name, Fallon. Dozens of records appeared. Fallon was once a high-ranking peace advisor for Zerth, close to Queen Velari. He had been respected, trusted. But during the final year of the war, he disappeared along with data about Zerth's cloning labs. Mark read further. Some human spies had believed Fallon was working on a secret project trying to create a clone that could end the war, a being built for peace. But before any proof was found, the war ended, and the report stopped. One file caught Mark's attention. It was a medical report from a human rescue ship, dated 12 years ago. It mentioned a young child found in a life pod drifting near a dead zone between Earth and Z or ETH. The child had no name. No records. Only one thing stood out: a genetic scan showed unknown alien human DNA patterns. Mark's eyes widened. That child was him. That evening, Mark returned to his room, hands shaking slightly. Everything he thought he knew about his life had changed. He had not been born. He had been made. But not as a weapon, not as a spy. Fallon had created him to be better, to carry hope, not hate. But who had found him? Who had placed him in that orphanage? With no past, someone had wanted to hide the truth, while Mark wrestled with the answers. Queen Velari sat in her study, speaking quietly with her advisor Duran. He found the records. Duran said, I know, Velari replied. He came to me after. What did you tell him? The truth, as far as I understand it. Duran crossed his arms. If he is truly Fallon's creation, some on our council will not accept him. I know, but he is not Fallon. He has no lies in him. Even so, many still blame that face for what happened. Velari nodded, and yet that face is back, with new eyes. The next morning, Mark returned to the Queen's chambers. This time, there was no formal dinner, no guards. Just the two of them, seated across from each other at a small round table. I know now, Mark said softly. Fallon created me. He wanted someone who could do what he could not. Velari looked at him with calm eyes. He always said peace needed more than words. It needed a heart that hadn't been broken by war. Mark nodded. Then why was I left alone? Why did no one tell me? Velari's voice lowered. Because Fallon disappeared before he could tell anyone. His enemies may have hidden you or tried to destroy you. Somehow, you survived. Mark thought of the life pod, the dark space, the lonely stars. Maybe I wasn't meant to be found, or maybe, Velari said, you were meant to find your own path. She leaned forward. You are not him, but you are his legacy. A new page with a new story. Mark looked into her eyes. I want to help build peace. Not just between Earth and Zerth, but within myself. Velari nodded slowly. Then, we begin together. That night, something unexpected happened. An explosion rocked the lower chambers of the palace. Alarms rang out. Mark rushed to the window and saw smoke rising from the garden gates. Queen Velari appeared moments later. The guards are investigating, she said quickly. No one was hurt. Who did this? Mark asked. We don't know yet, but someone clearly wants to stop these talks. As soldiers moved to secure the palace, Velari and Mark exchanged a silent glance. They both knew what this meant. Someone feared the truth, and they were willing to burn peace to keep it hidden. The palace was quieter than usual the next morning. Soldiers moved carefully through the halls, eyes alert for any sign of trouble. The explosion the night before had shaken the guards and the people inside the palace. It was a clear message. Someone did not want peace to happen. Mark stood in the royal corridor, watching soldiers examine the damaged gate. His mind raced. Who wanted to stop the talks, and why? Queen Velari appeared beside him, her face calm but her eyes hard. The council suspects someone within the palace, a traitor who wants war to continue. Mark turned to her. Do you think it's connected to me? Velari looked at him closely. Your presence stirs fear and anger in some. They believe you are a threat. Mark frowned. But I'm here to help. to protect you in this peace. Villari nodded slowly. I believe you, but others do not. That afternoon, Mark was called to a meeting with the Queen and her council. The room was large and cold, filled with Zurith's highest leaders. They sat stiffly around a glowing table. Counselor Tarev, a tall man with red skin and sharp eyes, spoke first. Mark, you are the Queen's guard and a human. Your presence here is a risk. Mark answered calmly, I understand your concerns, but I am loyal to peace, not war. Tarev narrowed his eyes. Loyalty is proven by actions, not words. Villari stood to defend Mark. He saved the palace last night by warning us of danger. We owe him trust. Tarev shook his head. Trust is earned, and he reminds us too much of the past. The room filled with murmurs. Some nodded. Others looked uneasy. Mark spoke up, voice steady. I do not want to repeat the mistakes of the past, but if you treat me as an enemy, how can I help? Villari's eyes met his. We will watch him closely. After the meeting, Mark found himself alone in the palace garden. The soft glow of the plants gave a strange comfort. He needed to clear his mind suddenly. A shadow moved near the trees. Mark reached for his weapon, but stopped. The figure stepped forward. It was Zara, a young Zurith spy and former soldier. She had been watching Mark since his arrival. I want to talk, Zara said softly. Mark nodded. I'm listening. Zara lowered her voice. Many here don't trust you. They think you might be a spy or a weapon. I'm not, Mark replied, but I need allies. Zara smiled faintly. I can help you, but you have to prove yourself. Mark looked at her. How? Zara pulled out a small device. There's a hidden lab beneath the city. It's connected to Phelan's work. If we find what's there, it could change everything. Mark's heart quickened. Then we need to go soon. That night, Mark and Zara met in a secret tunnel leading to the city's old underbelly. The air was damp and cold, and strange machines hummed faintly in the dark. They moved quietly, careful not to be seen. The tunnel opened into a wide chamber filled with alien technology. Mark's eyes widened. This must be the lab. Zara nodded. Look for anything about Phelan's clones. Together, they searched through glowing data pads and broken equipment. Suddenly, Mark found a sealed container. He opened it slowly. Inside was a small recording device. Mark pressed play. A soft voice spoke. It was Phelan's voice, calm and steady. If you find this message, then I have failed. I created a copy of myself to carry peace forward, someone who could succeed where I did not. But I fear enemies will try to destroy this hope. Protect the clone at all costs. Mark's hands trembled. I am that hope. Zara looked at him. We must keep this secret safe. Back at the palace, news of the lab discoveries spread quickly. Villari called an emergency meeting. This lab proves Mark is part of Phelan's plan. Villari announced, we must protect him and the peace talks. But Counselor Tarev stood firm. I still say we cannot trust him. He is a living reminder of betrayal. Villari replied, trust will come with time. For now, he is under my protection. The council grudgingly agreed. Days passed. Mark trained with Zurith soldiers, gaining their respect. He shared stories of Earth and listened to their tales. Slowly, barriers began to break. One evening, Villari found Mark in the garden. You have done well, she said. Mark smiled. I want to earn your trust and the trust of your people. Villari nodded. We will build a new future together. But far away, in a hidden chamber, a dark figure watched. General Drexen, a fierce enemy of Villari, an old rival of Phelan, gritted his teeth. Mark lives. Drexen growled, and peace may yet bloom. But I will stop it. He turned to his spies. Find the clone. Find the truth. Destroy them all if you must. The war was not over yet. The dark corridors beneath Zurith's capital were cold and silent. The underground lab where Mark and Zara had found the recording was only the beginning. Unseen by the Queen or her council, a darker force moved in the shadows. General Drexen sat in his secret command room, surrounded by holoscreens showing the palace and the city above. His sharp eyes narrowed as he watched the peace talks proceed. His hatred for Queen Villari and the humans burned hotter than ever. Mark's existence was a threat to everything he believed in. Drexen rose and clenched his fists. They think this clone can change the future. They are fools. His voice was cold and dangerous. Send spies into the palace, find Mark, find the secrets of the lab, and destroy everything that threatens our power. Meanwhile, Mark and Zara worked closely with Queen Velari and her trusted advisors. They planned carefully, knowing that enemies could strike at any time. Velari trusted Mark more with every day. She saw how he listened to her people, how he stayed calm even when others doubted him. "You are more than a soldier," she told him during one meeting. "You are a symbol of hope." Mark felt the weight of her words. He wanted to live up to them, but the danger grew. One night, as the palace slept, Mark received a warning message from Zara. "Meet me in the old tunnels. Now, it's urgent." Mark moved quickly through the empty halls, his senses alert. When he arrived, Zara was waiting near a hidden door. She looked worried. "They found something," she said. "Drexen's spies are closer than we thought." Mark frowned. "What did they find?" Zara handed him a small data chip. "Proof that someone in the council is helping Drexen." Mark's heart pounded. A traitor. They moved to a secure room to study the data. The chip showed secret meetings between a council member and Drexen's agents, plans to sabotage the peace talks and take control of Zurith. Mark's mind raced. If the traitor succeeded, the war would start again. "We have to stop this," he said. Zara nodded. "But we need proof to show Queen Velari." The next day, Mark and Zara told Velari what they found. She listened carefully, her face growing serious. "This betrayal runs deep," she said. "We must act quickly." Velari called an emergency council meeting. The traitor was confronted with the evidence. The council member tried to deny it but was silenced by the proof. Velari's voice was strong. "This palace will not fall to traitors. Mark, you have proven yourself today." The council agreed to increase security and watch closely for more enemies. With the traitor exposed, the peace talks continued. But the threat of Drexen and his followers remained. Mark worked with the palace guards to strengthen defenses. He trained soldiers and shared strategies from Earth's experience. Slowly, trust between humans and Zurith grew. One evening, Velari and Mark stood on a balcony overlooking the city. "Do you think peace is possible?" Mark asked. Velari smiled softly. "I want to believe it is, but we must be ready for the challenges ahead." Mark looked at the stars. "Whatever comes, I will stand with you." Velari nodded. "Together, we are stronger." Far away, in a hidden base, Drexen watched the palace through his screens. "They think they can stop me," he said coldly, "but I will not let peace win." He turned to his soldiers. "Prepare for war." The early morning light filtered softly through the tall windows of the palace. The city of Zurith was waking. But inside the royal chambers, a heavy calm filled the air. Queen Velari stood by the window, looking out at the horizon where the twin suns would soon rise. Beside her stood Mark, the human guard who looked like the man from her past, but who had become so much more. Their journey had been long, from suspicion and fear to trust and hope. But now, the real test had come. The peace talks had drawn attention not only from friends but also enemies. General Drexen had gathered his forces in secret, planning a final strike to tear down the fragile peace. That morning, the palace alarm rang out. Velari and Mark moved quickly to the command room. Soldiers were already preparing for battle. "We have reports of Drexen's fleet approaching the city," the chief guard said. "They mean to attack before the talks can finish." Velari's eyes narrowed. "Then we fight for peace. For our future." Mark nodded. "I'm ready." Outside the palace, the skies darkened with ships. Drexen's fleet was larger and stronger than anyone expected. But Zurith was not alone. Earth had sent reinforcement ships that gleamed like stars in the cold space. The two forces clashed with thunder's power. On the battlefield, Mark led a squad of soldiers. His calm voice and steady actions kept the team focused. Explosions shook the ground. Laser fire cut through the sky. But Mark fought not for war, but for the chance of peace. He moved through the chaos, protecting his comrades and finding ways to weaken Drexen's forces. Back in the palace, Velari directed the defense. She coordinated with Earth's fleet, using every tool and tactic she had learned. She remembered found her past filled with loss and betrayal, but now she had marked the symbol of hope and future. Hours passed like moments. The battle raged. In a daring move, Mark and a small team boarded Drexen's flagship. Their mission was to stop the general and end the war before more blood was spilled. The corridors of the ship were cold and dark. Guards rushed to stop them, but Mark and his team fought with skill and determination. Finally, they reached Drexen's chamber. The general stood tall, weapon in hand, but surprise showed on his face. "You cannot stop me." Drexen snarled. Mark stepped forward, calm and firm. "I am not here to destroy you. I am here to end the war." Drexen laughed bitterly. "Peace is a lie." "No," Mark said softly. "Peace is the only way forward." A fierce fight began. Mark and Drexen clashed strength against strength, will against will. In the end, Mark's resolve was stronger. He disarmed Drexen and held him at gunpoint. "Your fight is over," Mark said. Back at the palace, news of Drexen's capture spread quickly. The fleet withdrew. The battle was won. Velari and Mark stood together before their people. "The war has ended," Velari declared. "Not because of weapons, but because of courage and trust." Mark looked out at the crowd. "I am not the man I was made from. I am who I choose to be." The crowd cheered. Days later, the peace talks resumed in earnest. New agreements were signed. Old wounds began to heal. Velari and Mark worked side by side, leaders of two species, united by hope. One evening, in the quiet of the palace garden, Velari spoke softly. "Thank you, Mark, for giving me hope again." Mark smiled. "Thank you, Your Grace, for giving me a chance." They stood under the twin moons, the future bright before them. The story of the clone who looked like a broken past became a symbol of a new dawn. A story of peace, courage, and the power of choice. End of story.